Today's video is sponsored by Native Deodorant. Native Deodorant is an all-natural, paraben-free, aluminum-free, vegan, and cruelty-free deodorant that has a bunch of amazing natural scents. The scents are long-lasting and the texture of the deodorant is nice and soft and good for sensitive skin. It works really well for me throughout my daily riding routine, which I'm going to show you here, and we're also going to do a scent test throughout this video to see how the scent of my deodorant lasts throughout the day as I ride several horses. I've been using Native Deodorant for several months now and I've been really impressed with the results, and my mom has also been using it and loves the scents and finds that it lasts a very long time and keeps her smelling nice throughout the day. And this video is just going to kind of prove that and show you how busy I am throughout the day and that I'm working on a farm with smelly animals in very physical work. Video convinces you to try Native Deodorant. You can get 33% off with my link down below and use my code at checkout, and this will give you a discount on your first box that makes it really affordable, and these deodorants last a long time, so it's totally worth the price. So this particular day was one of the days where I needed to go buy hay for my horses. I typically buy large square bales that weigh over 1,000 pounds because they're cheaper and we have to drive a ways to get them. Coming back with a big hay bale in the back. The one downside of these hay bales is that we don't have a tractor to lift them off of my truck after, so we typically have to take them off in pieces and put them under the RV shelter by my house. This makes it a little bit more work to unload, and it also sucks because I'm allergic to hay, so it's a little bit of work, but it's definitely worth the lower price for the hay bale. So here I am clearing out old hay from underneath the shelter. This is just the last of my other big bale, and I'm just going to go feed it to my horses so that they can snack on some of the orchard grass and that we have a nice clear spot to start unloading the large bale, which, like I said, is quite a bit of work and not an awful lot of fun if you have a severe hay allergy. On an average day, my mom and I unload the hay bales ourselves. This time we were a little bit lucky because my brother is borrowing my uncle's skid steer to help us level our field and scrape out all of the poo in it for the winter, so he helped us push the hay back, which made it take a lot less time than it usually does. Typically this is about a half an hour to 45-minute endeavor, and it's not very fun because the hay is full of hay dust and I inhale lots of it. So afterwards I always am sneezing a lot, and it's just a good time, as you can tell by how terrible I'm making it sound.
Oh, baby man, is that your new big boy blanket for when you're bigger? He doesn't even care what you do.
So we just finished unloading like 1,300 pounds of hay with our hands, more or less. Do I still smell like my deodorant?
It smells lovely. Is it the cactus flower one?
Yes.
Because it smells lovely.
Next up, I'm going to work with my first horse. We've had a lot of fire smoke blowing in from fires from other areas, so the horses have had about a week or more off because it was just too smoky. Today, the smoke was basically gone and the air quality was much better, so I just grabbed my first horse, who is named Mercedes. She's a quarter horse mare, and she's lovely. She's very green. I've started her under saddle recently, and she's been doing really great, but I typically work with her in the round pen first because she's still getting used to being in the arena, and after a week and a half off, I just don't play around with the youngsters because you never know. Sometimes they need a little bit of a refresher or they're a bit silly. After warming her up a bit in the round pen, I took her out to the arena just to do a ride out in the arena, show her some poles. This was my first time walking her over poles under saddle, and as you can see, she doesn't really care. She was super good in this arena. I've actually not ridden her in this one because I usually ride her in the flat arena since it has a gate that can close. This one doesn't, so obviously that's a little less safe, but since I had my mom here with me, it's not as big of a deal because at least if I fell off, someone's around to collect me off the ground. So anyways, the Mercedes was very good and she didn't try to throw me at all. She didn't set a foot wrong and she was very brave being in this arena for the first time with a rider on her back. Also, a quick side note for anyone who likes my shirt. It's the Grey's Anatomy shirt and it is from my merch store, which you can see linked down below. And you can get your own. It features a dappled gray horse with all of the anatomy labeled, so it's kind of witty and I really like it. They turned out really well. It's comfy. I'm wearing the long sleeve shirt, but it also comes in a number of different apparel options and it's really cool. So you can check it out at my store and support my store. Awesome. Thanks. So I tacked, rode, and lunged a horse in training. Do I still smell like my deodorant?
Floral beauty.
Nice. After finishing up with Mercedes, I grabbed my next horse. This horse is named Aria. She's a big mare. She's like a draft horse crossed with a quarter horse, and she's been in training with me for a few months now. She's doing really well. She really likes scratches, as you can see her face here while I'm tacking her. We've been working on getting her better with being cinched, so as you can see while I'm girthing her, I'm giving her treats. This is just to encourage a positive outlook towards the saddle and the girth because she used to be quite girthy due to previous saddle fit issues that have now been corrected. So I'm just trying to reframe her brain around that. I've been working really hard on getting her to stretch down into the bridle and relax down and forward and soften through the mouth during our ride, so I was really happy when she offered me this much stretchy trot near the end of our ride. So yeah, this is a perfect note to finish on. She's a very good girl. I am really pleased with how much stretchy trot she offered, and she's really stretching forward and seeking the bit rather than trying to hide behind it. So that's really, really great. So, do I still smell like my deodorant? Wow, you're really getting in there.
I do like the smell of native.
Still smells like it?
Smelling like native.
Last but not least horse to ride for the day is Milo. I haven't ridden him in a few weeks because he's been dealing with some issues with his feet and just getting used to his new shoeing situation, which I will talk about in more detail in another video. It's not actual horseshoes, it's something else that I'll be announcing soon, so stay tuned. So we just did a light ride. I didn't do very much with him because, like I said, he hasn't done very much the last few weeks because he's been dealing with foot issues, and he also set himself free a couple weeks ago and scraped up his legs. So he has just been chilling, and he was pretty good. He was really fresh today, so I put him and Pogo out in the arena after our ride so that they could run around because both of them were very fresh since they've had time off. So they had a bit of a play in the arena after I rode, and yeah, both boys were pretty good boys. So this day is a weekend day, which I usually do less routing on the weekends because it's technically my day off, even though I still end up doing client horses anyways. So on the weekends, I do more groundwork and manual work and just getting stuff done, like getting the hay and whatnot. And earlier in the season, my full day included also galloping the racehorses. As of September 1st, I haven't been galloping them, so this video doesn't include that. But even with the days where I was galloping 10 to 13 horses a day and then doing all of my rides for the day that are client horses, the native deodorant still definitely held up. Just got off riding Milo and let's just see if I still smell like it. Why are you being so creepy about it? Does it still smell like deodorant?
It does. He likes it too. Check it out.
Now it's time to feed the horses. My horses don't really eat lots of grain. I only feed them grain once a day. Most of the grain that they get isn't actually grain. It's just compressed alfalfa pellets, which is just hay. Percy does get a high-fat grain, and the others just get a ration balancer because they're easy keepers. Percy is the hardest keeper, but even still, I try not to give him more than a pound of grain a day, and then he just gets lots of alfalfa cubes, and he takes like 10 years to eat. So I'm doing the grain here, and I fed him first before I went to go do some groundwork with Banksy because he takes ages to eat. Do add supplements to my grain. It's pretty basic stuff, the most important of which is zinc and copper, which is for their hoof health. I do this instead of feeding a hoof supplement because they're very expensive generally. And then I also add rice bran. Percy gets the most, and then the other ones just get a little bit to kind of mask the flavor of their supplements. And then the last but not least, I put some lysine in, and then I put oil on top, which is the O3 animal health oil, and then mix it all together, and that's it for their dry grain. And then once the dry grain is done, I do add more alfalfa, which is more soaked alfalfa cubes. I like to soak the grain because this prevents the risk of choke. They're more likely to choke on dry grain, and I also find it just makes them eat a little bit slower, and it's a little bit easier on their stomachs to digest because grain in general is just not a typically natural thing for horses to eat. So that's why I try to feed as little as possible and then soak it and do all these things to try to prevent the risk of colic and choke and other problems. Last but not least is Banksy. I don't do very much with Banksy. Here he is just playing in the arena a bit. I also do like a tiny bit of liberty work with him where I just teach him how to follow me and offer him scratches when he's being good. So that's what I'm just doing in like the walking clips. It's not very interesting. It's just a few steps at a time. Some days he's better than others. It's remaining connected. But it's just something fun to do, and he doesn't really have any other expectations because most of his time is just spent chilling in the field. So these are kind of what our work days look like, is just him investigating objects and kind of playing around with me, enjoying some scratches, and just being a baby. So it is now 6 o'clock and I've been out and about since about 10, so 8 hours. The last sniff test for the native deodorant, and this is like a typical day riding lots of horses out at a barn, so I should smell like shit.
I get to be the one to find out.
Yeah, well, you were like stoked sticking your nose right in there before. So.
Yeah, it doesn't smell any different than it did at the beginning, which is just really good. Like furs.
So, anyways, we highly recommend for barn folks because it actually smells good instead of
for
like
extra smelly people
fake
like me.
stuff. Like it smells really natural and nice. So,